Hi, I'm Joe from Scott Home Inspection, and today I'd like to take a little time to explain what a blower door test is and what we're trying to accomplish when that test is running. Maybe you're a builder or a contractor and you've been told recently that you need a blower door test. Hopefully you were aware of those testing requirements before construction began, but maybe you just simply have some questions and hopefully I can answer them for you. So, essentially, the blower door test simulates different pressures that can be applied to a house. Anytime you've got a framed assembly, whether it's got a house wrap and siding, windows installed, there's all kinds of points on a house that can allow transmission of air from the outside in or from the inside of the house bleeding out. And it really depends on the pressures that are being applied. So a home is subject to these different pressure changes. Even though a home sits under a slight negative pressure and is kind of bleeding out through its walls and its ceilings or basement or crawl space, what a blower door test does is it simulates much higher pressures. When you set up a blower door frame inside of a door, you go through the house and you make sure all of the windows are closed, everything's as button tight as you can. Bath fans are off, door to the garage is closed appropriately. You really want to get as tight of a seal on the whole house as you can, and then you set up that blower door frame and you're going to depressurize the house. You're going to turn the fan on and it's going to suck air out of the house and put that pressure against the walls and against the windows and really see how much air leakage is coming from those places. Blower door tests are run at 50 pascals, which is a pretty significant amount of pressure. If you've ever seen a blower door test being run, it's kind of a fancy looking contraption. It's pretty neat, but it doesn't look like much. You'd be surprised the amount of pressure the thing can actually generate. Let's say you're a contractor then and you're having a blower door test done on the home that you're wrapping up, new construction. Ideally, you would have been preparing for that test through each stage of construction. It's really quite unfortunate for us to come out and do testing at the very, very end of the project and find bad blower door testing results where the house is leaking above the levels that are code required. Code required levels being 3 air changes an hour. Because what do, right? Like the house is done. You're trying to just simply wrap up your permit and now you've got these bad results. It can be difficult, but there are solutions there. Some pretty cost effective and some maybe a little more costly. So we have the blower door frame set up. It's depressurizing the house. We're sucking air out of it. Maybe we've got a little bit of leakage around windows. Windows always have an assumed little bit of leakage. Maybe the bath fans, most bath fans have negative pressure dampers. They're called butterfly dampers, so that as air is being drawn back into the house, the little damper closes shut and limits some of that airflow. But again, there's an assumed small amount of air leakage that's going to come back down through a bath fan. Your range hood might have some amount of air leakage that comes back down, but these really are kind of assumed leakage areas. These aren't areas that we are really going to try to address. Maybe we run the blower door test, we're applying that tremendous amount of pressure to the house, and one of the windows is just screaming like a banshee, just really, really whistling, and it's closed and it's latched. That might be an install issue where the window just can't appropriately close and seal per the manufacturer's specifications. So maybe we get down into the basement. Maybe the house is built new, but the basement's unfinished. Oftentimes we kind of see the, death by 1,000 cuts at the rim joists and the sill plates, where you've got your concrete foundation box and then your framed wall assemblies that sit on top of that. Where those two assemblies meet is where a lot of air leakage can kind of penetrate and come back down through. So when those things are being installed, the sill plate on top of the concrete foundation wall, the frame walls on top of that, paying really close attention to making sure that the different sealants and weather strippings are installed there to make sure that there's not going to be this kind of constant air leakage where, the bottom half of the house sits with the top half on top of it. One of the solutions that we see that works, I know there's a lot of opinions out there about different types of spray foam products. If you're talking exclusively about air sealing, spray foam products are the best. There's just simply no other product that's going to do as good of a job. Not only is it doing some amount of insulation, but the air sealing is just perfect. So what we see a lot of then is that spray foam install at the rim joists and at the sill plates just to seal things up. And maybe it's just a 1-inch application, real thin, just quick through there to get things closed up. And then you go back through and install like R19 bat or something. They stuff in those cavities. But that can kind of be the difference between really getting the house button tight and maybe struggling at the end. So what do you do if you've built your house and you have finished the basement and then you're scratching your head thinking like, we can't even get to the sill plates? You might be experiencing air leakage at your light fixtures through the ceilings. A lot of newer light fixtures are kind of sealed canisters, can lights for lack of a better term. Where as they're getting installed to the drywall, as they're getting mounted to the trusses in the attic assembly, they're really designed to limit or completely eliminate the potential for attic air to bleed back down through the assembly and into the attic space. So let's say you've got a big open floor plan main floor with sister trusses and a bunch of can lights in there. Maybe you put a bunch of blown-in cellulose or fiberglass on top of that stuff. There's still a lot of potential for air leakage to come back down through the light assemblies. So we're running the blower door test. Maybe you've kind of got 1, 2, 3 of these different things all kind of going at the same time. This is where, at permit application through the construction process, you really kind of have to have a mind towards where can air come from? One single can light's not going to fail your blower door test, but if you've got 40 of them in a house, like you might accumulate leakage enough where you are going to fail. So a big part of achieving good blower door test results has to do with the installation of the house wrap on the outside. So back when I was working as a subcontractor and I was on site, I would see roofers look at the house wrap and where a certain part of the roof assembly would tie into a sidewall. And they would use a blade to slice that home wrap and then slip their flashings underneath and then pin the house wrap back into place. Great idea in concept at a rough-in stage because, water hits the home wrap, runs down, goes over the flashing, boom. It's a nice watertight house. Wrong. That house wrap has been compromised by that install now because it's designed to be one complete installation that prevents air leakage. It obviously does some amount of water prevention, water penetration issues can be remediated effectively with a good home wrap installation. But that is your air brake. It's the stop of the house that prevents your larger air leakage issues from developing. Where your, like we talked about a moment ago, where your foundation wall meets your framed above grade walls, and at that rim joist and that sill plate, that home wrap's got to come down and it's got to make sure that it's covering over those areas as complete as possible, as few staples or securing nails as possible. You really want to just get that shell tidy, taped, pinned in place, and then get the siding on top of it. Where you do have those exterior wall penetrations where, the gas main comes in, the sprinkler supply line comes out, the air conditioning suction and refrigerant line come in and out, anywhere where you're drilling a hole to slip something through, like seal that up really, really well, because especially like an AC suction line, that's a 2-inch hole. And I see all the time when we're performing home inspections where that gets maybe a little quickly sealed. It shouldn't be a quick seal. It should be an appropriate seal with the sealants that are appropriate for that area. You know, making sure that the home wrap details where it meets your window details and the sill sealant details. These are all things that if you just pay a little bit of extra attention and just really try to tie these things together well, will pay dividends at the end of your project when you're running a blower door test. So it's really quite unfortunate to kind of get caught having to do a blower door test at the end, and you know, you're kind of scratching your head because maybe you didn't do all these details. What do you do then? What, you've got a house and it just is not passing, and you're not about to rip off a bunch of siding or dig into these finished areas to try to chase leaks through a house, you know? There are companies that operate aero barriers, right? It's kind of like a vaporized foam product where even if the house is finished, you know, it requires a bunch of additional prep time, but specialists can come in and run these tests. They'll pressurize the home appropriately and fill the home with this kind of vaporized spray foam, essentially, where it will then pass through these areas of leakage and seal at each one of these joints. It can be maybe a little more costly than, you know, taking the time and attention through the project to make sure that things are sealed up, but there are post-construction solutions to take a really leaky house and get it under control. So I'd recommend that you maybe spend some time looking around for specialists who do that kind of work. So I hope you have maybe a little bit better understanding about what the blower door test is doing, and some common problem areas that we see during testing. If you have any questions, you'd like to reach out to me, I am Joe from Scott Home Inspection, and I'd be happy to take a phone call or answer an email if you had one. Otherwise, I'd recommend you visit our website at www.scotthomeinspection.com. Have a good day.